You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Phantom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kristin, and with me today are Kelvin and Christos. Kelvin, my love, how are you?
I'm well. I'm ready for January to be over. This is something like the 164th day of dry January. And it seems that everybody around me on social media wants to rub it in my face how much they're going out, having fun. No, seriously, it's fine. It's fine. I do actually secretly enjoy this literal hibernation, like the bear I am, of just not going out, not spending money, not drinking alcohol, and just doing things like jigsaw puzzles or waking up fresh at the weekend and doing a little 10-minute yoga session from watching some hot guys on YouTube. You know, what's not to love about that?
Oh, there's so much to love about that. Puzzles, yoga, hot men, sign me up. Justin actually is talking about doing a couple of dry months leading up to Sitges because he wants to make sure he can shed a few extra pounds.
He wants to look good for his boys.
I was like, you're so cute. But I find dry January is very noble. Do not get me wrong. But I also find it's an odd month to do dry because there's still celebrations that bleed into January from the holidays.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Yeah, for myself, I'd be like, I would be setting myself up for failure here. So I think I'm going to do April. I'm going to do abstaining April.
Well, I mean, depending on religion, I guess that's Lent, isn't it? So the lead up to Easter. So
I didn't even think about that.
In my religion, you'd give up something, abstain for 40 days.
There you go.
Chocolate or something. Look at me preaching religion. It just shows, doesn't it, how much it is like thrown at you as a child. And
it is.
Sticks. The knowledge of it sticks so much.
It's there. But you know what's so funny is I think I could do a month without booze way before I could do a month without chocolate. And Christos, how are you doing this morning, sweetheart?
I am doing great and not doing dry January, but I probably overdid it last night, I was kind of maybe wishing I had done dry January about 10:30 last night, but otherwise I'm fine today.
Fantastic.
Yes, exactly. My little Lent is I've decided to give up all the meta apps for a week, and I'm hoping I can maybe keep that going. So that's kind of my immediate Lent and suck it to you Zuckerberg type of moment.
Honestly,
it's interesting when you look at it from a abstinence perspective rather than the politics and the ethics of the situation. It is really it's quite healthy to do a digital detox and just step away for a while for mental health benefits. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Or unless you just sit there glued to Bluesky constantly for the week.
I have heard from some of my friends who have purged Twitter from their life that that one app was particularly toxic. And not having that in their life anymore has made a big difference. I never had a Twitter. So that was never a concern of mine. But yeah.
It's really interesting. I've been thinking a lot today about social media. And particularly with the whole TikTok ban that has gone live today in America as day of recording Sunday the 19th. Now, personally, I always joke and say I'm far too old for TikTok. It's for the kids. But I know so many people here, who literally it's a source of income for them. They are, proper influencers, and they now can't. They've had such a massive audience cut off from them, and it is really going to affect them financially.
They're going to have to. They're going to get a real job.
I was going to say, go get her. Here's the old man me talking. Go get a real job.
One of them used to be my personal trainer, and now he just does videos on TikTok and makes a fortune.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm too lazy to monetize anything online. It takes so much work and effort, and never read the comments.
And you have to sustain it too. You have to do it. You can't just like take a day or two off. You got to keep it going. So
Well, leading into the new year as well, my big thing is, one thing I don't want to give up is constant everyday sitting and having my moment of gratitude. So let's look at that right now. What are we grateful for this week?
Great joy and gratitude.
So Christos, what are you grateful for this week?
Well, in terms of the Star Trek world, I got a lot of merch that had been ordered that just showed up this week. I got my new fan home Stargazer ship. And it's, the season 2 Picard Stargazer, not like the old school Stargazer, but it's beautiful. It looks very nice right next to the Titan. And I do say Fan Home is doing a much better job even than Eagle Moss was doing with these ships. So I got that. And I got this really nice high-end Star Trek bracelet that came from Germany. I ordered like way back in early December. I think Kelvin was the one who told me, just do it. And it got hung up in customs. It was supposed to come before Christmas, and it just kind of randomly showed up this week. So it's beautiful, but I do need to add more links to it so I can get it around my wrist. So, and then my other thing is I got my new glasses yesterday, and they're made from recycled vinyl records. And
oh, wow.
That has just touched the music person in my life. Kristin, if you get really close, you can actually see the grooves in the front.
I get into the groove with that.
Yeah, I was obsessed when I saw them. I don't care how much it costs. These are what I'm getting.
Huh. What a cool idea.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. I just these are so cool. So,
do you happen to know which records they melted down to make your glasses?
We were joking about that yesterday. I was thinking I probably got an Edie Gourmet record on my face right now. And
I was going to say maybe you got Engelbert Humperdinck on your face.
Just as bad. Let's just hope that maybe it's like Cher or Diana Ross or something really cool like that,
Amazing. And Kelvin, how about you? What are you thankful for this week?
I am grateful for the community this week, for all of our Star Trek friends and family. Amy and I have been working on the schedule for the view screen, which returns in a few weeks' time. For season 3. So we have now locked in guests for all 8 episodes of the run. So we are good to go. So special thank you to everyone who has agreed to come on, as always. It's been particularly challenging this year because 2 of the 8 weeks are during the Star Trek cruise. So that automatically rules out a lot of our friendship group because they're in the middle of the ocean, so they won't be able to participate those weeks. But we've got people from literally all across the globe. I think we're going to have to one episode a little bit later than our normal time because we've got Davey from Australia coming on, and it will be literally 4:00 in the morning for him on a Monday morning.
On a Monday,
too. Yeah. So he's like, "Please, can you go? I'll get up at 6." I'm like, "Bless you, bless you."
Well, I have no problem pushing things back a little bit. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not a morning person.
What are you grateful for this week, Kristin?
Oh, this has been a hard week for me. So I did lose an aunt on Thursday. And so this week has been a lot of just being thankful for health, being thankful for family that I do have remaining. It's been a hard go. She was an amazing woman, lived a great life, but still it is a hard time to sit back and reflect. But I'm just being thankful for the time I did get to spend with her, and thankful that she was also so well cared for by her daughter and her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren at the end of her life. So it's been a very sobering week for me, and just a lot of coming to terms with my own mortality, even though hopefully, knock on wood, that's decades away. But it's and then of course just reflecting again on my chosen family and the whole community, and everybody on this show and all the other shows. Just my life is rich. And I think that really hit me hard this week, that I'm so thankful that this is where this universe has brought me to. So, gonna get a little teary here.
It's quite beautiful though. We were just talking about social media, and clearly you have connections, followers, whatever, from all across the world. But this franchise, even this podcast group, and these holidays we go on, has given us actual friends who we check in with all over the world, and it's not many people who can say that. So we're very blessed.
Yes, we are. Switching gears a little bit into today's topic, Christos, do you want to give us a little introduction on what we're talking about today?
Sure thing. We are, believe it or not, it's another part 10. I think last week was part 10 as well.
It was 10s across the board.
10s, right. So this is part 10 of our medical ethics series, and we are kind of doing a little bit of a hybrid, pardon the pun, because of 2 episodes. We're going to talk about Tuvix, of course, the controversial season 2 episode of Voyager. That is episode 24 for those of you who want to do a rewatch. And the other companion episode, Tuvix, from Lower Decks season 4, episode 1, which is really our Voyager tribute episode of Lower Decks, is what I like to refer to it as. So just a little recap of our 2 episodes here. For the Voyager episode, transporter trouble merges Tuvok and Neelix into one, creating Tuvix, and an unwinnable situation for Janeway and the crew. And our Lower Decks description is: years later, while transporting Voyager back to Earth, the crew of the Cerritos are Tuvixed, leaving Boimler, Mariner, Tendi, and Rutherford to save the crew while fighting other surprises lurking in Voyager's shadows.
Ooh. So, I mean, while we're looking at the 2 Tuvix episodes, I think it's clear on the rewatches that the one where we're talking about medical ethics and true conundrum, the one that really stands out, of course, is the Voyager Tuvix. So that is where the majority of our discussion is going to take us today. But I still want to pull in the other one because it's hilarious and kind of gross at the end, but we'll get there. So I guess my first question to everybody, what do you think? Did Janeway kill Tuvix? So
I can't believe you've gone there. You've gone there as an opener. It's like
there's no ramp up.
What a punch.
Let's just get to the meat here. Let's get to the most controversial part of the discussion.
I think this is one of the most controversial decisions made across Star Trek.
It's still being talked. I mean, the fact that this episode is notoriously discussed and it's still discussed today and obviously referenced in Lower Deck is a testament to just, how big this episode is. And I think you're right in saying that there's not too many decisions that have to get made in Star Trek that rival this.
No, I think the only other one that immediately comes to my mind is, of course, in the Pale Moonlight, which we talked about in our top 5 episode. But I think what makes that different is that Sisko was okay with his decision, and he could. But I don't think Janeway had that same feeling after. But so that's one reason why I think this might be even more intense than that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there is an argument to say Janeway did not kill Tuvix. She literally she ordered him to sickbay, and then when he wouldn't go, injected him herself. She did kill him. It's whether was she right to kill him or was she wrong to kill him. If we're turning this into a courtroom episode, Your Honor.
it's kind of a, if you think about it too, you had the doctor refuse to perform the procedure, and that's an ethical program that is written into the doctor.
Yeah.
So the fact that the doctor's ethical program told him it was wrong is a little bit of a, right there's the answer.
Bit of a tell. Yeah. But she was not bound by the Hippocratic Oath, right?
She's just the captain.
She is the captain. So she made this decision. So can her decision be justified? What are your thoughts? Do you think that one can argue that, okay, technically, yes, she killed Tuvix, but was she justified in that decision?
I could take, first off, I have mixed feelings after watching this episode again, because I used to know how I thought about this episode. And after rewatching it this morning, it definitely impacted me. I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. I really felt for Tuvix when he was pleading for his life. And that was hard to watch almost. For Janeway's point of view, Voyager is trapped in the Delta Quadrant. It's stranded. She lost 2 of her officers, so she's already lost 2 officers, right? However you want to look at it. I mean, yes, there's our blend and Tuvix, but they're not the same people anymore.
No.
And for her, splitting them gives her back her tactical officer and her cook.
And morale officer.
And morale officer, yeah. So there's this idea of, hey, I got 2 is better than 1. And being just very pragmatic, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's true. Kelvin, what do you think? Do you think that her decision can be justified?
Oh, I do think her decision can be justified. However, at this precise moment in time now, all I'm thinking of is they should have called him 241. That would have been a much better name.
2 for 1.
2 for 1. I would like to point out that as much as I agree with the decision to bring Tuvok and Neelix back, they could have done more to save Tuvix. I think there would have been a solution that, yes, would have ruined the episode. It wouldn't have had the medical ethical dilemma. But how about doing a Dinar Appel and, putting Tuvix into the computer so he could live as a hologram and be called upon and, make him a guest character that comes back every now and then. There's a lot of different things you could have done. There could have been a transporter clone, or it seemed, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to remember from my rewatch, I don't think time was ticking. I don't think it was right, we've got to do this now because we're going to move out of range or it's going to be permanent.
Nope,
they could have thought about this a lot more to come up with a win-win solution. Yeah. So that's what I disagree with, the fact it was so polarizing. You either keep Tuvix or you get rid and get the other 2 back. Where's the gray area? Where's the middle ground?
I think the problem with that is, and this kind of gets into the no part, the longer Tuvix exists, the more he becomes a fully formed individual, the more the rest of the crew is getting used to him and bonding with him. And it makes it every day it's harder to justify the decision.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to say, like, if you could have just, okay, he beamed on, he's there on the bridge in the transporter pad. Oh, crap. If we could undo it in 5 minutes, is it the same as undoing it, 5 weeks later?
Yeah, because he was only on the ship for, I think, 2 weeks is what they said the timeline was. But you can become very close to a person within that amount of time, especially when you're in a small ship. Like, look how close we all became after 1 week together on a ship. Yeah. Right? It would be hard. I'm surprised that there weren't more crew members that were fighting for Tuvix at the end. I found that a little unnerving. Like, have they had to callous themselves because of their situation where loss is just part of their everyday now, and Janeway had to shoulder the weight of this decision and this other loss that her and her crew were going to have to experience. Either way.
It's almost like certainly the bridge crew were complicit in that scene, what you just said, Christos, which is very jarring. It's not necessarily the desperation and the pleading by Tuvix. It's the apathy from the rest of the crew. And I think there's a close-up on Tom Paris, and he just kind of looks away and looks at the floor very shamefully. Nobody was willing to turn around to Janeway and say that's wrong.
Yeah.
You would have expected maybe at least Chakotay to, pull her aside, say, we can't do this. This is wrong. There was no argument for. And that is what made it just terrifying, that course of public opinion almost.
In fact, Janeway was approached by Kes begging her to do this.
Yes.
So do you think Janeway was the final nail in the coffin of her decision was from Kes, and Kes saying, please do something. I need Neelix and Tuvok back.
Let's not forget how close Janeway and Tuvok are. And, there's also, a little bit of a selfish motivation there for Janeway to bring her friend back.
Yeah.
But what a great way to almost not acknowledge that within yourself, to say, oh, well, look at Kes, bless her. She's so desperate to get Neelix back. I need to look after her and sort this out. And I'm doing, almost kind of putting her own relationship with Tuvok aside, even though you're right, it was probably quite selfish that she wanted Tuvok back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and how many times are you presented with my friends are dead, but I can bring them back?
Oh, could you imagine?
Yeah. And so, or if I kill somebody, my friend comes back to life. That's basically what this boils down to.
Yeah.
Can I give you an example here that you will be horrified at, to use this as a simile? So imagine if you meet a good friend of yours' child, and the friend has died, and the only memory that you've got of them is them living on through their child. They look a lot like them. They've got a lot of their customs and beliefs because they've been raised by them. And then someone says you can get your friend back if the child dies. So almost like undoing the kind of parental development of a child. Everybody, no one would say yes to that. Everyone would be absolutely thoroughly disgusted with the concept of that. But it's almost, if you see Tuvix as almost like the offspring of Tuvok and Neelix, rather than the manifestation of the transporter accident, it kind of is a little bit along those lines. So it is quite distasteful.
Yeah, I think the only reason this even gets to be a debate is because it was an accident. It was not meant to happen. And Tuvok and Neelix never consented to what happened to them.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too, right? Is we also boil down to the classic Star Trek search or Wrath of Khan, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
So do you think that? Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, do we see an argument for Janeway's decision here that the needs of Tuvok and Neelix, being two people, outweigh the needs of Tuvix?
Well, and I was just going to frame it that way. As a captain, you have you have a responsibility to your crew, and Neelix and Tuvok are part of her crew. Yeah. So if she has the opportunity to save her crew as their captain, does she have an obligation to do that? Yeah. I think there's two questions there. And then there's this is a life form, this is a sentient life form in Tuvix, and this sentient life form does not want to die.
Yeah.
So does she also have the right to order that?
Yeah. And I don't think we'll ever truly come to a set conclusion on that, because this splits the Star Trek community quite severely, I find, where some people are saying there's no justification. I'm on the side that there was justification. And I also, as a woman, have to ask, was her decision more harshly criticized because she is a woman? Or do you think that the same decision would have been the same either way? Like, people look at, again, I'm going to pull back, in the Pale Moonlight, Sisko technically ordered the death of somebody, and people are like, oh, work. That's what you had to do to save people's lives. But Janeway did the same thing.
Yeah. So right. I've got the answer to your question.
Oh.
The fact you've forgotten this, you've answered your own question. A do-over of Tuvix was the Enterprise episode Similitude, where they cloned Trip to make basically spare parts to save the real Trip.
Right.
And then as the clone rapidly aged and became, in effect, Trip, he didn't want to die. And Archer ordered him to death. So same thing, but it's a man.
Yep.
Yeah.
It never gets mentioned.
No.
It's never one of, Archer gets a lot of stick for a lot of decisions he made. That's never one of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not as adept to Enterprise, so thank you so much for bringing that back to my memory. I need to do an Enterprise rewatch. I think that's my new.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
There you go. You got Star Trek drought in 2025. You got time for it.
Yeah.
I was going to say let's take this situation and move it to the Enterprise D. And you have Picard as captain with this decision, and you have Beverly Crusher as your CMO. And Beverly Crusher would go further than just refusing to do the procedure. Yeah. She would be fighting with Picard. She would be off the handle telling him how wrong he is. And I think that's just the difference in the two shows and the difference of the cast of characters. But, this would be another story on the Enterprise D. What would Picard do?
I think the Doctor was still developing his personality subroutine so much that he hadn't developed that many layers to have the strength to fight against authority like Beverly did. Beverly had no problem sticking it to Picard, but we needed like a Thomas Riker situation here where how can we duplicate and then tease apart one, but then we have to ask, we're still technically ending the life of one of the, I don't know. It's, literally a no-win situation that was placed against this crew. So how did the situation in Voyager differ from Lower Decks? So of course we get the comedy take on this where we have the one accidental Tuvixing, making it a verb now. And then he knows that he's at risk, so he starts Tuvixing everybody else around, and then they all get mass Tuvixed into the amorphous blob at the end. So did the Cerritos group kill that blob the same way that Janeway killed Tuvix? What do we think? Because they technically pulled them apart from singular being.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, wind it back a stage, because before the blob, you got the many different pairings of the officers. But what Lower Decks did to make it interesting is they made these characters quite, dare I say in inverted commas, evil, the baddies. Yeah. So the actual splitting of them became the kind of the challenge within the episode, as opposed to a moral dilemma, because these guys were bastards. So you just wanted to get rid. So yes, is the answer. They were killed in exactly the same manner. And it was not a debate. It was the aim. It was the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. So maybe Tuvix just made himself too lovable. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's part of the conundrum there, is because he is kind of likable, right? And he seems like a nice person. I love it actually too. It's like a third actor playing the role. In the Lower Decks episode, though, it's funny how it crosses a line. Once it becomes a blob, Tendi's suddenly her ethics take a back seat, and she has no problem separating them.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, it's still a life form, you know. But apparently, if it can't talk, then it's okay. So.
Right. So, because do you think that blob was sentient?
I mean,
because we only saw it for a few seconds, just sort of rolling around with its multiple mouths and random arms sticking out. It was quite the animation moment. But do we think that it was a sentient being? Do we think it knew what was happening to it?
I mean, I think it could feel.
Yeah. Okay.
It has, they did that scan, and you could see all the personalities inside it and things like that. So I'm sure if you were to shoot it, it would feel it.
Okay.
Yeah. Can it eat, grow, reproduce?
Yeah,
One of the other building blocks of life.
I mean,
Go measure for man.
I get into this fight with people all the time as a vegan. Oh, why don't you eat fish? They're not sentient. The hell they aren't.
Oh gosh.
And there's a lot of things.
Fish.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things out there where you could say, well, just because it doesn't talk to you doesn't mean it doesn't feel something.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then people. Okay, real quick aside, Christos, as someone who follows similar diet to you, I love it when people come back like, well, vegetables can feel things. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
I'm just going to stop this conversation right here.
Who are those people?
People that
they need a slap.
I do not hold them close to my heart in any sort of way. But anyway, so out of the two, so there were two very similar yet disparate solutions here. So one was, of course, locking on to the transporter of the actual DNA. And then when the DNA got too befuddled in lower decks, they did it by the personalities. What method did you prefer for sifting back out the individuals?
I'm going for the DNA one. Locking on to a personality seems a little bit time crystal to me. It just seems a bit convenient. It doesn't seem very sciencey.
Okay.
Whereas no DNA is unique. It's able to be identified. I liked the Voyager solution with the medical transporter and separating the flower out from everything. But yeah, beaming up a personality, I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I also just say that there's not too many captains that would have been able to just step in and do what Janeway did there too, because she's such a science officer too.
Yeah.
So so go Janeway, and that might be an assimilation for later. But hey.
So what would we have all done in these situations? Are we all sort of on the side that if we were captains and we were in charge of this, would we have chosen to bring back the crewmates, or would we have left the new being to go to continue life and lose our two friends? What are we thinking?
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
And I will say I changed my tune on this episode. Like I said earlier, I would say that when two crew members beam down to a planet, they accept the risks of what could happen, and using the transporter is a risk. And they officially died when Tuvix formed on that transporter. And I would never have, I could not force someone to do what Janeway did. So I would have let Tuvix live.
Okay. Woo! Kelvin, how about yourself?
I think I'd have done it. I think I'd have killed him.
I knew you would have.
I'm trying to, there is no real life example that you can give that is similar to this, but I just go into work mode with a lot of things and think of all of the very difficult decisions I had to make when I was a board director in my old company. Around things like restructure redundancies, and then making complete groups of people redundant from their job who I might have worked with for 10 years. And they're not dying, but they are losing their job and leaving the company with immediate effect. It's hard. And those kind of decisions do weigh on the person who's made them. And it certainly did on me months and months later. It was almost, you've just got to do what you've got to do for, like you said, Kristin, for the greater good, the needs of the many. But afterwards, when you reflect, you think, my God, I don't know what happened to this person after they left the business. They might not have been able to get another job for a while. It might have affected their mental health, their family, their situation financially. Yeah. And that's because of me. So going back to the actual scenario of Star Trek, I think I would have probably been a lot like Janeway of, we've just got to get this done. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. I know we don't get this a lot in older Star Trek because you get the reset button at the end of the episode. I would have loved, even if it was another scene or something in a later episode where Janeway just reflects on this a little bit. Maybe in the season 5 opener, Night, where she's locked in her quarters and she's going through a little bit of a tough time, reflecting on stranding Voyager in the Delta Quadrant. Maybe if they had that, having her reflect on a number of her controversial decisions, and this was almost haunting her.
Yeah,
I think that would have made it heavier hitting, and maybe she wouldn't have been judged as harshly over these years. It just seems this was Janeway being a real badass.
Yeah,
just a real boss.
it's true because Tuvix is never mentioned again.
No.
In 5 seasons.
So we've got a 1-on-1 then, Kristin.
Yeah.
Me and Christos, one of each. Who are you going with?
Kelvin, I have to side with you on this one. I'm sorry, Christos. I would want my friends back. I would need as many crew members as I can have being stuck where I am. And yeah, we'll get to later in some of the regenerations, but I think Tuvix almost stepped back into his roles too quickly and with too much like, well, it's just me. Like, he didn't really seem to give everyone else the moment to deal with their grief and the sudden appearance of this new person. And it's a lot for people to take in. So I think that seeing how much the crew did miss their old friends, I think would have also helped with that decision.
I think the episode focuses way too much on how Kes is feeling with the whole thing and not showing a little bit more of everybody.
Yeah.
Or at least a few more.
I think the apathy we saw at the end where no one is willing to stick up for Tuvix, again, brutal scene, but I think that shows that Tuvix, you're nice, but we had a lot of shared experiences and a lot of emotion with these other two. So, yeah. So that brings us actually to a very interesting thing, was the decision and the decision being made. And I want to talk a little bit about substitute decision makers and power of attorneys, and that legal standing a person can have, that if a loved one is incapacitated and unable to speak for themselves, they give this weighty responsibility to someone they love to make decisions that they think are going to reflect the patient. So Janeway did act as a legal representative for both Tuvok and Neelix in this situation, as they were unable to speak for themselves and communicate their wishes. So, question, are any of you substitute decision makers or power of attorneys for anybody?
I am not.
You're not?
No. It's interesting because my parents are both getting to an age.
Yeah.
And without making me sound very, very cold, which I do a lot on this show, I'm very, very practical. I use this example a lot. If a friend of yours has had their house burgled, two people would have, someone would go up and say, "Oh my God, how are you feeling? Are you afraid to go to sleep tonight in that house? What can I do?" No. The first question I would ask is, have you got insurance? I'm very practical. I'm not the biggest emotional person. So I've started to have conversations with my parents about what happens when the inevitable happens to them, in terms of, I need to know the details of the finances, the end of life plans, their insurances. My mother's got so many things squirreled away in accounts from years and years and years ago that she just can't even remember.
Oh, no.
And I've been saying, you need to have all of these written down, and you need to, we need to put an annual appointment in the calendar for me to just review, is this still standing? Where is it up to? Because when I'm grieving, I don't want to have to try and figure all this out.
No.
And my brother's certainly not going to do it. He will be, falling off the wagon, crying in a skip somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I want power of attorney now while they're alive, but I certainly want clarity on arrangements to make that necessary admin easier. So yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, a living will would be nice, right? Like, so i.e. somebody has a heart attack or a stroke, are they in a situation where they, if it comes to a certain point, do not want to be resuscitated, for example? Do they not want extra measures being taken to save their lives? That's quality of life type stuff, right? So you would just know if something happened, what do they want? It's not a matter of power of attorney and, it's just no, they don't want to live their life hooked up to a bunch of machines. Please don't go further than this in order if something happens or when it comes to it. That's the kind of stuff I think is very valuable. But I mean, putting this back into Janeway's type of stuff, though, I mean, technically, when Tuvix formed, Neelix and when Tuvix formed, Tuvok and Neelix ceased to exist anymore. They essentially were dead.
I think it's interesting as well that when you talk about a living will or power of attorney, these are things that are arranged in advance of something happening.
Right.
What Janeway does here is there's a problem, and she says, right, I'm now going to start to speak on their behalf because they're not here.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same of what she does again with 7 of 9. When 7, is disconnected from the Borg and has been very explicitly saying, I want to remain a Borg. Don't you disconnect me. Don't you change me. And Janeway just says, well, she's having these health issues. She's rejecting the implants. I'm speaking for the human that was assimilated, and I'm taking control, and I'm saying perform the surgery.
Yeah.
So she does it a lot.
Well, there are certain rules that we assume in our lives that actually have these decisions defaulted on us. So, for example, me as a wife or a spouse, I legally would be the first decision maker for Justin.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times it's the different roles that we assume that this stuff is defaulted on us. And I actually, as my role as a government worker, we had a dilly of a pickle the other day at work. So we found out that one of our individuals who has been deemed incapable due to his disability is in the hospital, and he is essentially dying. He is right now just simple comfort measures, honey water on the lips to keep him comfortable, but he is not able to take in food, and his body is shutting down and he's dying. And the question is, like Christos, like you were talking about, there's the whole spectrum of what we can do, little intervention to full intervention. So as with the medical team coming to us, they're saying we have to put this option on the table legally, and it is inserting a G tube so that they can artificially feed him. And so we had to refer this to the public guardian wing because he has no friends and no family. And we're a funding body, we cannot make that decision. His paid caregivers cannot make that decision. So it's had to go to an impartial committee, essentially, to look at it. And they will look at this very, what will his quality of life be after the procedure? Will he survive the procedure? How much longer will he survive if it's a success? And it was a very jarring conversation to be a part of, is being asked to make these decisions for this gentleman I've never met.
Horrible.
And trying to say, do we think that his time is just here? Or should we fight and see what we can do? And I will find out tomorrow what the outcome of the final meeting was, because I was off on Friday. And I'm very, it's been sitting with me all weekend long. And so I found that it really brought up a lot of questions in me before I even started developing the script about the ethical issues tied to substitute decision makers. And one is personal bias, because no matter what you're doing or what role you're in, we all have biases that we take into every situation. And I think we see this a lot with young, previously healthy people who are in a horrible accident and end up in a situation where they are essentially only alive because of machines. And there always seems to be one camp that says, well, they're at least alive, let's keep it going. a miracle could happen, and another camp saying, I know that this person would not want this. Yeah. So, we have to always look at the fact that we've got these biases. And I notice them in myself too, that, I can see both sides of the story a lot of times.
And age is often one as well. I don't think it's said in America and Canada, but we have a saying over here, right? If someone passes away and you'll say how old they were, oh, they were 85, 90. Oh, they had a good innings, which is a cricket reference, meaning how long you're at the bat. So they were here a while. So it's fine. They lived a good, long life. But is that really the decision? If there is resource available to prolong someone's life, away from the whole suffering argument, if we are extending someone's life through technology, through resource, through time, should a bias exist based on age? We don't want to spend this resource because that person's very, very old and they would probably die of something else soon anyway. So it really is an ethical dilemma.
It is. Now, do we see any of Janeway's biases come out in this decision she made? And I think we've talked about it, that we kind of did.
I think if Janeway didn't know these guys, for example, if you watch this from an outsider looking in, you don't have a personal connection to anybody, I think it's pretty obvious the way you should go, that it's like, okay, especially if like they said, it's a little bit different because it's not just Janeway knowing them, it's also them being in the Delta Quadrant and being stranded. And there would probably be different ways of looking at this. Like, I mean, would it have gone differently if Voyager was just a Federation ship in the Alpha Quadrant and they could take Tuvix back to Earth and have this discussion?
Yeah.
I think Tuvix would have survived.
And it's still a relatively early episode in Voyager's run. It's towards the end of season 2.
Yeah.
But I'm going back even further to one of the very first episodes where Neelix's lungs are taken by the Vidian. And they capture the Vidian, and she says, I am now forced with the dilemma of having to kill you by giving Neelix his lungs back. And she doesn't do it. She says, get off my ship. I don't want to ever see your people again. And in the end, she's perfectly happy to let Neelix live there with his holographic lungs not being able to move. So she doesn't make a similar decision in that instance. So we know it's not just in her to just going to kill everyone.
Well,
but that as over the 18 months additional that she got to know Neelix, she's gone from letting him suffer and not providing the solution by killing the Vidian and getting the lungs back to actually killing Tuvix to bring Neelix back. So I think that's an interesting transition.
Mm-hmm.
And Tuvok.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's
a long-standing friendship with.
Yeah, and I think this is where we just sometimes we can, as the fans, we can overthink this too, reminding that probably different people wrote those different episodes and may not even have seen that episode that,
Yeah.
You think 30 years later we'd be dissecting
it. Yes. So there's our moment of levity, listeners.
Yeah. Now, another question I have, and another ethical issue that comes with substitute decision makers how do we ensure that the decisions that they're making actually do align with the person for whom they're speaking? And I think that's one of my big issues with this episode is we don't get to see Neelix or Tuvok's reaction to hearing what happened and all that. Were they sentient enough in Tuvix to know what was going on and to remember everything? Do they carry Tuvix's memories?
Do you know what? It's really interesting. Imagine if this wasn't Tuvok. So imagine if this was Harry and Tom. They would have immediately got Tuvok to do a mind meld with the entity to try and see if they could communicate directly with the person who's been Tuvixed, to hear, in the in their mind, come save me, or leave him. With it being Tuvok, they wouldn't have just gone and got another Vulcan character. Nobody, like, we didn't have Vorik back then, to try to contact Tuvok telepathically within. It was such an unknown, as you've just pointed out. I think, any influence or how would I have felt ruins the story, because I always have a Star Trek solution from all of these hundreds of episodes that we've seen to fix this problem, to take the Catra, to use the transporter, to make a duplicate, to put them on the holodeck forever as a hologram. Another say, there's so many ways to fix this problem that ruins the story.
I feel like there is, first off, we're not allowed to see what happened immediately after they rematerialize. Is there, like you said, is there any memory of it, or is in their mind they're still beaming up from the planet, the surface of the planet? And
I think they know.
Yeah,
I think a lot is communicated via a look in that last scene where she walks out of sickbay.
Oh yeah, I mean on her face, for example. But I'm just like, how genetically, with a fusion, how would, I don't know. It's just so hypothetical that
Like
I'm just gonna stop.
my major question though would have been Tuvok, and what would he have actually allowed to have happened in this situation? Would he have been okay with this new being being killed to bring him back, or would he kind of take Christos, your perspective that technically this is my death, and this is how things are going to continue after my death. Do not kill this being to bring me back. So I always just wondered how Janeway sort of reconciled not what she wanted and what Cass was essentially begging her to do in the middle of the night, but what the two people who are literally affected, like physically affected by this, would have actually wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we can sit down and do our, like, our what is our living will, right? What is our wish? I'm not sure that this particular circumstance might be one that you have a solution for that you're going to write down in paper, but I can tell you guys, if I'm ever in an accident and I'm going to be, bedridden, please pull the plug. I can tell you guys that about me. If I get to a point where it's like there is no quality of life, I don't want to live. No. That's, I can easily say that. I know people though that's like, they're so afraid of dying that would do whatever it takes.
Stick me in a cryo tube and launch me into space and bring me back when you can fix me. I'm the other way. Yeah,
cryo tube would be cool.
Yeah.
Get it? Cool.
Yeah, we can wiki it. We can neutral zone you. TNG episode 26.
I'll be
Beverly will defrost you and fix you, and then you'll be ready to go again.
And then you'll
looking for your stock portfolio.
I'll be an 81, not a 37.
All right.
Amazing. So let's look at some assimilations and regenerations of this episode. So what did we like about this episode?
I'm going to go for a Tuvix. Tuvix one. And I like the continuity recognition that we had, that Voyager was returning to Earth to be made into a museum ship, which is referenced in Endgame, where Admiral Janeway says to Captain Janeway, Voyager is a museum on the grounds of the Presidio. So that one line of dialogue from the last episode of Voyager was carried over into Lower Decks and made true.
Love that.
True. And we get it from there to Picard season 3, like about 20 years later in the timeline, that it's been moved, but it's still a museum.
Yeah.
I do like the beginning of the episode where on the Tuvix, the lower decks, like where Mariner's just like, oh yeah, Janeway murdered him. just like in that true Mariner way. That's like, we're not gonna like debate this either way. This is what happened. She murdered him. So unless you get the fan points of view, all the 30 years of fans having opinions are kind of injected into the Lower Decks episode. I'd like to call out as a assimilation Kate Mulgrew's acting in this episode. We see her in the middle of the night talking to Kes and talking about her fiance Mark, and we don't see her talk about him very much, right? And you get to actually see Janeway stop and be very vulnerable and open up and actually be a little choked up, and you get that peek into her. And then I'll flip that to another moment where she's done the deed at the end of the episode and she walks out of sickbay, and you can just see the questioning of her actions on her face. You just know that did I do the right thing? And she doesn't know.
Yeah. Kate Mulgrew's ability to communicate just with the look is one of her strongest acting skills, I would say.
That's really freaky. I was watching Hunters today where they get the letters from home. So she gets the letter from Mark to say he's remarried. And it's that scene where it's just her face reading a letter, smiling, and then it drops. Yeah. The face acting in it is amazing. So it's really coincidental that you just mentioned that.
Yeah. I will also call out another actor's skill, and that was Tom Wright. I think one of the reasons why people are still talking about this 30 years later, because Tuvix was a likable character, and Tom Wright did such an amazing job with this role. And I think that's one of my main issues with them not finding a way to sort of keep him as a recurring character, is because I would have loved to have Tom pop back up in Voyager every now and then. I think that would have been a really fun character, but no. So, but kudos to Tom for his amazing job as Tuvix. And then one more. Agree more. Yeah, and then one more is just Lower Decks. All the callbacks to some of our favorite Voyager episodes were just hilarious. And when we got the little Borg macrovirus, that was pretty cute for being a virus. So what about some regenerations? What did we not like about this episode?
I'm going to go in straight away with, as much as I thoroughly agree with what you've just said about Tom Wright Jr. and how he would have made a great recurring character, I really didn't like the whole going in with Kes while she was clearly grieving. It was inappropriate, insensitive, and almost it really detracted from the likability of Tuvix. That you just wouldn't do that. Even if you have those feelings, you would recognize that they're struggling.
And he kind of reaches in and touches her and gives her a kiss on the cheek and then walks out. I'm like, she just said she is almost uncomfortable being in the same room with you. And you're
too soon.
It's too soon, and it's almost not consensual, obviously.
No. And as a woman, again, there's a generation where men think it's okay just to touch women because, it's not being done in a malicious way. And it's happened to me several times. And when a guy just reaches out and just touches you for no reason, and it sticks with you in a weird way.
Yeah. So I feel like, I forgot to bring this up, but it's kind of perfect, right? What you're talking about. There are some similarities to, the host here, TNG episode with Beverly and the Trill, because once the Trill's in a different body, yes, it's a little bit, there's some callbacks, but it's not the same. Mm-hmm. It's not the same person. It's that plus.
Yeah.
And so it's a very similar. So it's almost like Kes has to accept Neelix in this other form, and she just can't do it. Just same way Beverly couldn't accept Odan in another form.
Yeah.
She just couldn't do it. Well,
and it's probably why they have the rules around reassociation as well, because it is hard on the survivor much as they want the Trill to have a rich and varied life.
And think about her relationship with Tuvok was almost paternal. So it would be imagine if your spouse and your dad were melded into one, and that new meld started to hit on you. It'd be this is a real quick no for me.
Talk about daddy issues.
Oh, to the nth degree. So I don't know. I completely agree, Kelvin. It's creepy. It was creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another regeneration from me is this would have been a lovely character development plot point to jump off from for Tuvok and Neelix's relationship afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, they have such a fantastic, almost Odo and Quark-like relationship that you could have made a change in the continuity based on what happened in this episode to bring them closer together, to soften that disapproving irritability that Tuvok had of Neelix because of this shared experience. And they almost kind of did that much later with Riddles when Tuvok lost his logic and almost became quite childlike.
Yeah.
That changed the relationship, but this would have even more. This is almost like you're attached with Beverly and Jean-Luc. It's such a shared experience. You would have expected them to refer to it. I know there's all the rules about writing credits and the reasons they can't do this, but
come on. What about you, Christos? Any regenerations here?
The only one I can think of is it's a little bit, when Tom wasn't sure about dropping the ship out of warp, should he be taking orders from Tuvix? I'm like, that whole issue seemed a little forced to me. Like, hey, he's still at his post, he's still got his rank. You're, looking for confirmation as to whether or not you should still be taking orders. It's just done to kind of like devalue Tuvix as a person and be like, do you even exist? Should I even be listening to you? And it's like, it's a little cringy.
See, my regeneration of this episode actually kind of relates, but almost, I don't know, because I think that considering the trauma that Tuvix had just been through, should he have been put back in that post so quickly? We don't know this person. We don't know how his ability to think and problem solve and react to situations was affected.
Yeah, they sort of do a little bit to try to explain that. I agree with what you're saying, though, but they do kind of get it. Remember when the doctor's like, get him out of sick bay, he's annoying me, blah, 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 get him to work, give him something to do. Yes, but maybe to your point, it maybe shouldn't be a bridge
station. He should just be in the galley. He should be cooking then. Don't put him in charge of the ship.
Yeah.
Don't put him in charge of the guns.
Right? And then my last regeneration for this was, okay, at the beginning, they're like, ooh, we're having transporter issues. Oh, don't worry. I'll press this button and make it all better. And they don't do a test run on the fix before beaming them up from the planet. I'm sorry. If I knew that the transporter was having an issue on the ship, I'd be like, can we send a shuttle? Like, why are we just defaulting to this? I would prefer if you tried to beam something up first other than us and make sure it's okay. I just found it very, like, I don't know. It was it was careless. I found it was that opening scene. I'm like, what the crap are you doing? You don't know that it's fixed.
I appreciate the health and safety sentiments that you're giving.
Yeah, I feel like anytime something's wrong with the transporter, even though you think you fixed it, maybe needs to be some testing.
Absolutely.
And let's
you're on
try
a
and be
planet.
Yeah, let's beam something up from the planet, make sure it works right, or do your, they take the inanimate objects and work on it. We saw a little bit more of that in TNG, I think.
Yeah.
So really, but then we couldn't have had the episode if they didn't have the accident. I
was going to say, all this trauma could have been completely avoided if they just done a couple redundancy checks, and Janeway would not have been called a murderer. Really, this is on the transporter crew.
Do you know how many plot points, how many episodes are debunked in Star Trek The Next Generation if you actually just separate the ship?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we wrote an episode? It'd be everybody went to work, had a lovely time, went home at the end of the day safe, got the mission done.
Honestly,
Went at 10 forward, had a quick drink.
Yeah.
You can see why at the end of the Berman era, they had to go with a prequel for Enterprise to try to take away some of the fantastical technology, because it's harder. It's got hard to write a good episode because you could paint, you paint yourself into a corner while there's all this technology that fixes so many plots. So got to water down the technology a little bit. All right.
Let's move into some trivia and continuity. We are talking up a storm here today. So I really found this interesting. This is about Voyager Tuvix, that this episode was originally written by freelance writers with a much more comical tone and lots of slapstick elements. Staff writer Kenneth Biller said it was almost like a farcical 1960s sitcom, and he even came up with a funny theme song. My gosh, could you imagine? However, they decided the premise, though somewhat hokey, deserved a more serious philosophical approach, and so they rewrote it with the dramatic angle. Hence why we're talking about it 30 years later. I think that rewrite was a good idea. I do want to hear that theme song, though.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. And then we did get the farcical part because we get the Lower Decks take on it later and get to do all this slapstick stuff.
Yes.
So actor Tom Wright was eager to pursue the role of Tuvix when he had first heard about it. So it's kind of cool that somebody really wanted that part.
Yeah, it's true because, he had never seen Voyager before, but he knew both Tim Ross and Ethan Phillips from auditioning just in the actor scene.
Though the intention was there to have this moral dilemma in Tuvix, Wright couldn't see it. And he said that there isn't any moralizing, he observed. He said it's just a story about a character. And you follow that character during the time he's alive. You watch the birth, you watch the life and the death of one character in one episode. There is no struggle between good and evil. It's purely a no-win scenario. And then when asked if he thought that Tuvix should have been spared the separation at the episode's conclusion, Wright stated, "I think it was inevitable that we would have been separated." So
there we go.
Tom, he agrees. Right, everything's fine. Yeah. We've got consent.
Lower Decks, of course, the Tuvix in Lower Decks, I thought was hilarious. Seeing all the holodeck characters come back. And so we, of course, see the clown from The Thaw, Dr. Chaotica from Night, and Michael Sullivan from Fairhaven. Him and Mariner were hilarious.
And we get the salamanders from Threshold.
I loved this. The little
robotic
robot. Oh my gosh, they were.
And the Borg takes it over.
That was so funny.
So Tuvix was the only other time the character is mentioned in Trek after this episode, to say that it's never mentioned again on Voyager.
Yeah.
Even though there could have been a few opportunities. My last little act of trivia I'll just throw out there is Tuvix is about to become an action figure for the first time 30 years later. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, he's going to be part of the new, not in the first wave of the new Nacelle toy line, where they're going to go after non-obvious action figures.
The only thing that always creeped me out about Tuvix, though, was that little tuft of hair he had coming out the back. That was just so gross. It just looked like...
Does it make sense that his clothes would have Tuvixed as well?
Oh, you read my mind there, Christos. I was just thinking that was an assimilation.
Or that, yeah, true. And then when they untuvix him, they're both in the Starfleet uniform.
Where did Neelix's clothes go?
Justice for Neelix's clothes.
Yes, just for Neelix's clothes.
Janeway just put that in the buffer so that they would.
She's like, I hated that outfit. So, final thoughts. We have a slew of other medical ethic episodes that we have reviewed in this series. Do we have a favorite still? Has Tuvix and Tuvix superseded your previous choices? Kelvin, what's your go-to?
Oh, there's so many because we've had 10. I'll quickly just run through them. From Voyager, we've had Latent Image, Critical Care, Nothing Human, Lineage, and Tuvix. From Strange New Worlds, we've had Lift Us Up Where Suffering Cannot Reach, DS9's given us life support and Enterprise Dear Doctor, with finally Symbiosis from TNG. So some really good ones there. I am going to go for the best example of a medical ethics episode from that list, which is in no way, shape, or form a favorite episode of mine, but it's Voyager's Critical Care from season 7, because it's very NHS, National Health Service, what we have going on here in the UK with our medical system, and the dilemma of, paying for private healthcare rather than people who are on waiting lists for NHS care, the ethics of that. So the resource allocation of healthcare, it's a fantastic episode, that one. So I'm giving it to Voyager Critical Care.
Okay. Christos, how about you?
I'm just going to call it out. I don't know how we've done 10 episodes, but we've not covered TNG's Ethics, literally titled episode, which is literally all about medical ethics and
doesn't mean we're done with 10.
I know, we got more to go. It definitely provides Dr. Crusher with one of the best monologues she has in the entire run of that show.
100%.
I would go, I'm going to stick to I'm going to say Tuvix, because we're just talking about it's very fresh in my mind. And honestly, I used to think very differently about this episode, and having just rewatched it, it hit me a lot differently just rewatching it. So I'm gonna, if it can do that, I'm gonna say it's a strong one.
Brilliant. What about you, Kristin?
Kelvin, I'm gonna go with you on this one and go with Critical Care. I remember the first time I watched this episode, and again, people who say when did Trek become political? I'm gonna say 1966 is when Trek became political. And so this is one of those episodes where directly almost mirrors back what's happening in society. And, right now in Canada, we're fighting very hard against the two-tier healthcare system. We're fighting to keep it all socialized. I don't know, people are blah, blah, blah. But I also think it very much shows the state that's going on in the US, with all of these stories coming out about nightmares with private healthcare insurance, and how those who are deemed quote unquote worthy or more valuable than others to society are the ones who are being prioritized. And it's just the fact you're alive gives you reason to expect certain things from life, right? You are worthy just because you are alive. Yeah. And you shouldn't be ranked because of how much money you make. So Critical Care, I think, will always be my number one medical ethics episode, simply because healthcare is a right. It should not be a luxury item. So,
what shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey and Mitch, self-proclaimed gamers who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through Star Trek Cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into beta canon with Peter, host of the Trek Book Club on Twitter and Bluesky, and his companion Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey and MC. If you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kelvin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy with new 8-week seasons in the spring and fall. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with an LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea, Bev? And for our patron members, we have the Hive Mind with script readings and roundtable discussion. It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, and Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. You can keep up with all of these shows by following the network at BQN Podcasts on Instagram and Bluesky. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
So next week's episode is going to be a little bit different because we have something exciting happening between now and then. And that is, drum roll please, the Section 31 movie is coming out. So spoiler alert now that there will be spoilers for the movie. So watch it before you watch the episode.
Well, and most viewers will have it's dropped on a Friday the 24th, and it's 6 days until All Good Things, the podcast, releases. So you'll have 6 days to watch it before our podcast comes out. So I'm looking forward to it because Amy Nelson will be here next weekend, and we're going to watch it together.
Oh, lovely.
I'm not jealous at all.
And so actually, she'll be sitting next to me here, and we'll be podcasting with you guys. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes next week with us in the same room.
That's cute. That's cute. We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or on our Discord server to continue our discussion there. You can also reach us at All Good Pod on Bluesky. Please follow the network on Bluesky, Instagram at BQN Podcasts. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching their master feed. Links can be found in the show notes.
So, Kelvin, where can people find you when you're not ordering Tuvix to his death?
When I am not doing that, you can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group. You can find me on Discord, or you can come for me directly at Kelvin's Timeline on most of the socials of various moral standings.
Oh, those are few and far between now.
Yeah. And Kristin, where can people find you when you are not titivating Tuvix's tuft of hair?
Say that 3 times.
If anyone's ever shaved their legs before and you always miss one swoop up your calf, that's what it reminded me of. It's just like, anyway, you can find me on Instagram for now. Again, I don't know. I'm going to talk about moral social media. I don't know if that's a thing. But I'm at K-Strats on Instagram. I'm on the BQN Network on Facebook. And my favorite is user Garaksfanclub on Reddit. And Christos, where can people find you when you're not running from a variety of Voyager's saved holodeck programs?
Well, in protest that I'm doing this week, you can find me on our Discord server, or you can find me on Bluesky at GreekGeekSD. I'm silent for now on everything else.
Good for you.
Here at BQN, we'll never make you listen to an ad. And if you'd like to help keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Hive Mind reaction show, script readings, and enjoy special patron-only shows like It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Please visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details.
If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a star rating and a written review. That's 5 stars, people. That'll help others find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and JJ Seastrum. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Mark White for our artwork, and Kelvin for our artwork each and every week. I've already seen your promo for this episode. It is amazing, by the way. Good job. So, special thanks. Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
all good things.